The Court of Appeal held that the prosecution had appealed against the title of the crime, the offences which the High Court had not upheld against the defendants, and the penalties imposed by the prosecution, arguing that it was inconsistent with the provisions of the law. And for the convicts that appealed include those who were not satisfied with the sentence, those who pleaded guilty and were not commuted, those who were convicted of non-proven offences, among other cases. All these were given the opportunity to explain their grievances related to the ruling of the High Court made in September last year. Civil parties seeking compensation appealed expressing dissatisfaction with the way compensations were determined. There are also those who aren't given compensation due to lack or insufficient evidence, appealed the court to hear from witnesses of what happened. Compensation litigation is scheduled for Wednesday next week. As for the name of the crime, the prosecution took the stand, explaining that the trial court had ruled that Paul Rusesabagina, Nsabimana Calixte aka Sankara, and Nzeimana Malk never participated in carrying out any terrorism attacks, but participated in the planning, arguing that a paragraph of the law had been ignored, which explained that the law stipulates that the leader of a terrorist group or one who incites others to commit terrorism and other related offences is punished as a perpetrator. It was here that Calixte Nsabimana was called to the stand and noted that he doesn't believe a spokesperson of an armed group should be accused and imprisoned for the acts done by the militants at a time he had not joined the force when he was still in Comoros. His lawyer, Ruggiero Jean, further added that his client pleaded guilty and requests that his sentence be reduced. For the offences in which the defendants were acquitted, such as the creation of a terrorist group, the prosecution alleges that the court failed to properly analyze the clause of acquittal, where 13 defendants, including Paul Rusesabagina, Calixte Nsabimana, and Helman Sengimana, were acquitted of this crime. The prosecution finds that the court would have ruled basing on the cases decided in 2016 rather than on the previous ones, hence finding it reasonable that Nsabimana Calixte, Rusesabagina Paul, Sengimana Malk and Bizimana Kassier be convicted of creating a militia group and 9 others be convicted of joining a militia group. For the case of funding terrorism that Paul Rusesabagina was acquitted, the prosecution finds that the charges against him are consistent with the provisions of the Penal Code. The court ruled that anyone to be convicted of this crime should be an outsider, and the prosecution finds it necessary for this conviction to also apply to the group's founder, as the law states. The court also convicted Paul Rusesabagina of fundraising for the MRCD-FLN, but did not convict him of sponsoring terrorism. This is where the prosecution calls for both acts to be treated as 2 related offences with the same motive of creating a terrorist group and sponsoring terrorism. This appeal hearing is happening in the absence of Paul Rusesabagina and his lawyers, with all his co-accused present. The next hearing is scheduled for Monday next week. Innocent MUGABO, RTV News.